This has to go down as one of the most epic failures in the history of this league, does it not? I mean, that was a surefire championship on paper when those three guys came together. And that's what I'm saying. It was the most unguardable offensive trio in the history of this league at the top of any roster. And look what they have to show for it now as they break it up. So
I have an announcement to make. I think the Phoenix Suns just won the NBA championship. They did. The NBA championship.
They did it now for Phoenix Suns stuff now. And that is what Woj and other people have talked about. It is because they are interested in tempting the Suns to try to trade them Kevin Durant now. They don't want to do this later. They want to put this on the table to see if the Suns will be tempted by it.
2 summers ago was one of the more dramatic NBA summers that I can actually remember. June 16th, Golden State's dynasty won their 4th championship, proving they didn't need KD and further cementing Stephen Curry's legacy. Exactly 2 weeks later, KD requested a trade and pretty much kicked off that summer. Now, this was directly after being swept by Boston and hearing all the critics about his legacy. To me, at that time, he had the Kobe problem, and I made a video about that. Fast forward to the following trade deadline, he and Kyrie, they got exactly what they wanted, being traded from the team they both handpicked 4 years prior. Kyrie went to Dallas and KD obviously went to Phoenix. At that time, Phoenix, they looked like real title contenders and probably favorites, and I'm not gonna lie, it looked real scary for the West. But a year later, it's turned into a true nightmare. We laugh and kind of kick around the joke that, oh, now Phoenix is basically Brooklyn West. But I don't even think people understand exactly how precisely accurate that statement really is. Kevin Durant has played exactly 83 games so far with Phoenix. He's 52-31. In his last 83 games with Brooklyn, he was exactly 52-31. It's been the Nets without drama. In KD's career with Brooklyn, the furthest he went is making the second round, losing his star point guard in that round, and ultimately losing to the eventual champion Bucks. Then the following season, he got swept in the first round. Well, so far with Phoenix, he made the second round, lost his star point guard in said round, and ultimately lost to the eventual champion Nuggets. Then the following year, he got swept just like Brooklyn. What makes it even worse for KD, and really Phoenix as a whole, is the situation they're currently stuck in. To me, what made Phoenix so mediocre last year was how thin they proved to be and how weak they were defensively and definitely on the glass. These are all crucial components to a championship team. We just saw it, and they really couldn't fill those spots, mainly because they were paying this big three $131 million last year. Well, next year, it literally gets no better. Devin Booker's contract kicks in, and basically inflation will destroy this team. Next season, that big three, they'll take up around $151 million. That's more than about 8 teams' full payroll last year. Phoenix next year is projected to have by far the highest payroll in the league, and they don't really have the cap to make the moves they desperately need to make this thing work. It's safe to say this move looked way better 2 years ago. Now, it looks like an absolute train wreck. In this video, I want to look at some of the more major moves over the past 2 years and how exactly they look now for the team that got the stars. Today's video is sponsored by Manscaped. Today, I want to talk about their Buff Bundle, which to me includes the cleanest, most efficient way to properly exfoliate your body. First, starting off with their body buffer, which is actually a handheld exfoliator brush designed to help remove dead skin cells, unclog pores, and even reduce those annoying ingrown hairs. It actually helps you get way more out of your body cleanser, especially with its lather boosting bristles, so your money doesn't really go down the drain. And speaking of a body cleanser, the Buff Bundle actually includes their refined body wash. You combine these two, and your body is definitely getting the most effective cleaning experience, and it comes with 2 bottles. So ditch whatever you're using right now. Go to manscaped.com and get 20% off plus free international shipping with my promo code SWISH at checkout. That's 20% off plus free international shipping with my promo code SWISH only at manscaped.com.
That blockbuster trade before the All-Star break. The Brooklyn Nets are trading Kyrie Irving to the Dallas Mavericks. Irving is expected to arrive in Dallas today for a physical and make his Mavs debut at the Clippers on Wednesday, a source telling our Adrian Wojnarowski.
If you would have told me last year, the player that's going to be in the better situation post-trade deadline between KD and Kyrie, and told me Kyrie, I would have thought you was crazy. Literally just last year, Dallas, they looked like they were in absolute hell. Bad contracts, couldn't rebound. Kyrie's reputation was heavily stained. It looked like it was a desperation move from all parties. But now, the gamble for Kyrie, it has proven to absolutely pay off. Yes, they lost in the finals, and yes, they got absolutely dominated. And do I think this duo can ultimately win a championship? Not unless they get significantly better defensively on the wings. But it was a very positive step. Regardless of what actually happened in the finals, Kyrie helped them get there, and nobody saw that coming. Also, with them getting there, and them and their best player, Luka, getting that experience, it exposed things they can build and improve on for their future. Love Luka, but he really has to get into better shape and improve his lateral movement defensively. You cannot get blown by at this historic pace in the playoffs. That can't happen. But at least they got to the point where they saw that, and now they have options. The Kyrie trade was easily a positive. That team hasn't even been to the finals since 2011, and playing such a dominant team like Boston, it exposed their glaring flaws, and unlike Phoenix, they have cap flexibility. Luka's the second, at worst, third best player in the sport, and next year he's the 15th highest player. Kyrie's 21st. The worst contract they have next year is Tim Hardaway, and it's expiring. So the Kyrie move, it not only patched up that massive Jalen Brunson mistake, but it also gave Dallas light of what needs to be adjusted and built upon with their superstar Luka. To me, a major W. The Rudy Gobert trade 2 years ago is one of the toughest ones to actually grade. On one end, and I've said this a lot, you have to give it praise because it did help this organization buy completely into some type of identity, something I believe all teams have to have. Before the Gobert trade, Minnesota was pretty mediocre defensively and on the glass. Since getting Gobert, they've been arguably the best defensive team when everybody's healthy and one of the best teams getting boards. But on the same token, where he's helped position them in the regular season with his defensive presence, he's also proven to be a liability in the playoffs when it really matters. This has been an ongoing discussion for years. Back when he was winning DPOYs with Utah and he didn't exactly have the perimeter defenders, so it looked like he got exposed. We get that. But I'm sorry, I can't go light on you when you're making $44 million. You're the reigning DPOY player. You got traded for 4 valuable players and 4 picks and a swap. I'm sorry, you deserve smoke. Minnesota had the best defense in the league all last year, like I mentioned. Damn near led the league in almost every defensive stat, and Rudy contributed heavily to that. But in the playoffs, again, where it really matters, I believe one of the biggest reasons they lost to Dallas was Chris Finch forcing Rudy Gobert on the floor. That particular series didn't really call for Gobert to play 33 minutes a night. It just didn't. Minnesota desperately needed spacing for Ant and Willie Conley to work, and for me, a front court of Naz Reid and Cat, it would have been way more beneficial versus Dallas. Then, while he was on the court, he didn't really play well. I'm not blaming Rudy Gobert solely because Cat, he played terribly, and Ant, he obviously calmed down. But Rudy's there for his defense and his rebounding essentially, and being one of the best 2 players in those 2 particular components, he got out-rebounded by 2 Mavericks and outplayed by a rookie who basically shares his exact same role. Also defensively, he got heavily exploited in that drop. Luka and Lively, they had a field day with him, so that's a very bad look. Next year, they're going to really feel this trade because Ant, he won't be paid baby money no more. Ant is going to be making real superstar money. Minnesota, as it stands right now, they're projected to have the 2nd highest payroll next year. And personally, I would explore moving Cat. But right now, the Gobert trade, it makes sense for the regular season, but it clearly has a playoff ceiling. And he's going to be 32 next year. 2 years ago, we seen 2 ball-dominant backcourts form together that really didn't make the most sense, but they were extremely exciting. Cleveland got Donovan Mitchell, and to be honest, that's really looks somewhat like Utah East, and Atlanta got DeJounte Murray, and that's been a complete train wreck. The Cavs, they're a much better team because they're simply a much better defensive team, but with 2 small guards who can't stop opposing ball handlers and the rest of the team not really being dynamic enough on both sides, people could question if it was worth it. I know Darius hasn't really been healthy, so I'm trying to grade him fairly. But he or Mitchell, they can't stay in front of the Tyrese Halliburtons, the Tyrese Maxeys, the Dames, the Jalen Brunsons, like none of them. They just can't. So to make up for it, those two have to carry so much of the load offensively. And quite frankly, I don't think Darius Garland is good enough. I just don't. Cleveland feels like a worse version of Dallas to me, where they have two decision makers whose defensive liabilities, a good collective defensive team, and two very solid bigs. But why I know it's not worth keeping that duo together, and why ultimately I believe Darius Garland has to go, it's kind of stunting the growth of Evan Mobley. We've seen this countless times, even with guys like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. When you go all in with a young team by getting a Donovan Mitchell, or in that case, Gordon Hayward and Kyrie Irving, it forces a young player like Evan Mobley to buy into a specific role around the stars of the team. To me, that can stunt his development at that specific time. Donovan is probably going to sign that max contract, and Evan Mobley, he'll be up soon. Donovan is clearly better. The team played great when Darius got hurt for like a 20-game stretch, and this team could desperately use a two-way wing with some size. Unfortunately for Atlanta, the Hawks, they have a duo that simply doesn't work. As a team, their worst two-man lineup all last year was DeJounte Murray and Trae Young. That's the definition of an absolute nightmare. The initial idea of the trade was to help Trae Young become a better off-ball player next to Murray, and for Murray to help that team's perimeter defense. But DeJounte has regressed a bit defensively, and Trae, he's proven not to really be an off-ball player. Trae has been utilized way more off ball, and the numbers prove it. His percentages of field goals assisted on is risen significantly since the trade. But at the same time, he's become a way less efficient player. Since getting Murray, he's had his two worst shooting seasons since his rookie year. Mind you, before the trade, he had literally just had his best and was consistently improving. Literally, the best thing that came out of this trade was Wemby for San Antonio. I believe Murray, he should be on the move this summer. Build around Trae. He's your best player in 2 decades. The Dame Bucks trade out of nowhere last year, I gotta be real, it doesn't really look good or too promising right now. To be honest, it looks like they helped their rival start a dynasty, or at least an Eastern Conference dynasty, while simultaneously hurting their best player's chance to maximize his championship window. If I just keep it basketball, the pick and roll between Dame and Giannis, it definitely had its moments, but it wasn't as dominant as I initially imagined. Dame didn't shoot nearly as efficiently as I thought he would with a lot less pressure, and the team took a much expected step back defensively, which used to be their identity. Kind of like I was saying with Cleveland, this team doesn't really have the athleticism to guard anybody on the wings, and especially anybody on Boston, and to me, that might make them way too reliant on Giannis, and he's already had injury problems. The Jrue Holiday trade, it just looks bad. Like, there's no way around that. You lost your only real hope at maintaining Boston's ball handlers with Jrue, and now he somehow joined them. Obviously, they didn't know that would happen, but Dame's offense has to be somewhere near 2020 Dame for him to remotely cover for the regression they've taken defensively and really just as a team. In less than a month, Dame is going to be 34. He's 6'2". Like, even if he's slightly better, that's still not enough to me. I'm not optimistic about this squad. I'm just not. Milwaukee is locked in to some pretty expensive contracts with a very old team next year. One of their gems last year, Malik Beasley, he played for like $2 million last year. That helped their cap. He shot like 41% from deep on 7 attempts. That spaced their floor, and he started 77 games. They're losing him. 1 year later, the trade not only helped your rival, but it seemed like it hurt your team's morale or something. Like, Dame still doesn't feel right as a Buck. I still see him hanging with Bam. I know you can have your own personal life, but something just seems off with Milwaukee to me. And lastly, Boston. I mean, I don't really have much to say. Jrue Holiday was like their 4th best player, and he made so many winning plays on both sides. Jrue Holiday shot like 50, 41, 95 splits on his way to his 2nd championship with his 2nd team. Porzingis played a heavy role for Boston all regular season, giving them a reliable close to the basket threat and just being in the way defensively, being 7-3. Then even in the postseason, obviously he didn't play much because he was hurt, but game 1, he just set the tone for the finals. If anybody, they've obviously made the best moves over the past 2 years, even getting Brogdon after losing the finals in 2022. That was a major slight W. He was ultimately the piece they flipped for Jrue Holiday. So again, all the moves Brad Stevens made over the past 2 years, major W's. If you guys like this video, If you made it this far, Comment the worst move over the past 2 years and the best. The best to me is obviously Boston, but comment those two. Follow my social media sites. Summer content will be flamed, so make sure you turn on post notifications. Do all that great stuff, guys. And until next time, as always, stay tuned.